Hi everyone, my name is Rabbi Sarah Shulman. I'm the director of Camp Ramah in Northern California. It's my pleasure to join the Beth Sholom community this Friday for a take-home tour about Parshat Noach. Every Saturday at Camp Ramah, I get the pleasure when it's time for the Torah service or pulling out a engagement device called the Galgal Shal Torah or Wheel of Torah, in which the camper that's coming up for the Aliyah, often with his or her counselor, gets the honor also of spinning the Galgal, which falls on one of 6 Hebrew words, a she'elah, a question, a midah, a value, a kushia, a challenge, etc. And the rest of the community looks at this particular section of Torah that's being read to find a challenge, an insight, a value, a voice, something that we notice new this year, this week. And it reminds me that every week, every year, as we read the Torah, whether we're children, adults, whether we're in quarantine or not, we find new and lasting insights because we change and our world changes and we read the Torah differently. And I think that is so true of Parshat Noach, which we think about so much as a children's story with animals 2 by 2, right, Noah? Yeah, that's right, Rabbi Sarah. Where there are untold children's stories about this beloved Parsha. And now, when we read it again as adults, especially now in our own arc of quarantine, we can see incredible lessons that speak to this present reality. So let's look at that. One of the things that comes out of the story after Noah builds the ark with his family, the flood and the rain comes, the dove finds the olive branch, and they're about to escape the ark. One of the things we notice is the way that they exit is different than the way that they enter because they've changed. When they exit, the Torah says that they leave by family, mishpachot. When they enter, they're described as entering beitecha, your house or your household. And I think we can relate to this. When we enter quarantine, it's about the physical space, about being in the confines of the house, being in this place, being able to go this far with this mask for this reason. But being in quarantine is about relationship. We rediscover, redefine what family is to us and how we appreciate or interact with the people in our family, in our outside world, through Zoom, through other connections. And then when Noah leaves, he has a different understanding, as does his family and everyone's, of relationship, not just within his family, but to all those creatures that he's been in quarantine alongside. So much so that God even changes the law. And no longer can human beings eat an animal with its lifeblood in it. This new Noahide law is actually enacted, we can imagine, in the aftermath of new relationships between Noah's family and the animals in which they lived with, raising questions about what will be the new ways in which we want our society, our communities to function after quarantine, after the pandemic. How will our priorities shifted, and what new constructs will we need in order to more fully appreciate the sanctity and beauty of those around us? And lastly, there is a stark moment in this Torah portion when we transition from what we think about in terms of a children's story, the rainbow, the promise that God makes to not do us again, and then the rest of the story. So after the rainbow, what happens? Noah gets drunk. He plants a vineyard, he gets drunk and naked or exposed. And there is this challenging moment that sheds light onto the mental health challenges that so many of us in our world face in quarantine and beyond. and the lasting impact of the experience of quarantine, the pandemic, and everything that has happened and will happen to us. So Noah gets drunk and exposed, and it's a reflexive verb. Hitpalel is the verb form in Hebrew. Vayigal, which means to reveal oneself, a sense of opening up, shedding light on the suffering to oneself, but also to his family members around them. The impact of the ark's experiences, of the survivor's guilt that he must feel for all those that weren't allowed or weren't able to join him in the ark and have perished in the flood, that stays with him. And it reminds us the importance of paying attention and thinking about what are the resources, the support networks we need in order to address the lasting mental, emotional, and social health crisis that is upon us. So as we prepare for this Shabbat, I invite us all to take on the lessons of this Torah portion with new eyes. To number one, appreciate that we can find deep meaning by returning to the Torah and the lessons of Judaism year after year, bringing our own experience into the mix with us. Number two, that there's an invitation for us to reflect on the things and priorities, the lessons and constructs that have shifted for us and for our communities through these last 10 months, and planning ways in which life will need to be different in the world afterwards in order to acknowledge the ways in which we have changed and need to change. And third and lastly, that we have an opportunity now and in the months and years ahead to really give the mental, emotional, social health of each and every human being on this planet the full attention and love that it deserves, to support one another so that we can all sustain ourselves, and that the reminder of the rainbow can be a true message of recovery and hope into the future for every being on this planet. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much for the invitation to join you on this Shabbat.